James, a young man feeling suffocated by the monotony of family gatherings, decided to leave his relative's house earlier than usual one evening. After politely excusing himself from the dinner table, he bid farewell to his family and set out for home on foot, opting for a leisurely walk through the quiet streets. The night air was cool and still as James made his way through the dimly lit neighborhood. Streetlights cast long shadows that seemed to dance eerily in the darkness. As he turned into a narrow alleyway to take a shortcut home, an uneasy feeling washed over him. The alley was narrow and deserted, with tall buildings looming on either side like silent sentinels. James quickened his pace, eager to reach the end of the alley and emerge into the safety of the main street. But as he walked, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Suddenly, a shiver ran down his spine as he heard a faint whisper echoing off the walls of the alley. He stopped in his tracks, straining to listen, but the whispering ceased as quickly as it had begun. Heart pounding, James brushed it off as his imagination running wild in the quiet of the night. Just as he was about to resume his journey, James caught a glimpse of movement out of the corner of his eye. Whirling around, he saw a shadowy figure standing at the far end of the alley, obscured by the darkness. Fear gripped him as he realized he was not alone. With trembling hands, James fumbled for his phone, intending to call for help. But before he could dial, the figure began to move towards him, its movements fluid and unnaturally silent. Panic rising in his chest, James turned and ran, his footsteps echoing off the walls of the alley as he fled for his life. But no matter how fast he ran, the figure pursued him relentlessly, always just a few steps behind. Desperate and disoriented, James realized he was trapped in the maze-like streets of the neighborhood, with no way out and no one to hear his cries for help. As the shadowy figure closed in on him, James knew he was running out of time. With one final burst of adrenaline, he sprinted down a side alley and ducked into an open doorway, praying it would provide him with sanctuary from the horrors that pursued him. But as he huddled in the darkness, gasping for breath, James realized with dawning horror that he had stumbled into an even darker labyrinth, and that the true nightmare was only just beginning. The walls of the building seemed to pulse and throb with a malevolent energy, and James felt as though he was being watched by unseen eyes. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind, sent chills down his spine. Suddenly, a voice spoke from the darkness, a low and guttural sound that sent shivers down James' spine. "You cannot escape," it whispered, the words echoing through the empty halls like a death knell, with a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach. James realized that he was not alone in the building. There was something else there with him, something dark and malevolent that hungered for his soul. Driven by fear and desperation, James stumbled through the labyrinthine corridors, searching for a way out. But no matter which path he took, he found himself only deeper and deeper into the heart of the darkness. Hours passed, but time seemed to lose all meaning in the depths of the haunted building. James' strength waned, and despair threatened to consume him as he realized that he was truly trapped, with no hope of escape. Just when he thought all was lost, James stumbled upon a room bathed in a sickly green light. In the center of the room stood a figure, its features obscured by shadows. As James approached, he felt a sense of dread wash over him. With a sinking feeling in his heart, James realized that the figure was not human, but something far older and more sinister. It radiated a palpable aura of malevolence, and James knew that he stood in the presence of true evil. As the figure turned to face him, James saw its eyes, glowing with an unholy light that seemed to pierce straight into his soul. With a voice like thunder, it spoke a single word: "Welcome." With a scream of terror, James turned and fled, his mind consumed by fear and madness. He ran blindly through the dark corridors, pursued by the echoing laughter of the figure that haunted his nightmares. And as the last vestiges of sanity slipped from his grasp, James realized that he had stumbled into a nightmare from which there was no waking, and that the true horror of Hollow Street had only just begun. Amber, Sarah, and Jake had just left their friend's birthday party, laughing and joking as they walked through the dimly lit streets of the neighborhood. The night was cool, and the occasional rustle of leaves added an eerie ambience to their surroundings. As they turned into a narrow alley, the atmosphere changed. The air felt heavy, and an uneasy silence settled over them. Amber glanced nervously at the shadows dancing along the walls, but Sarah brushed off her concerns, attributing them to post-party jitters. However, their laughter soon turned to whispers of unease as they noticed a figure lurking in the darkness behind them. It moved with an unnatural grace, its form shifting and contorting with each step. Jake quickened his pace, urging his friends to do the same, but the figure matched their speed effortlessly, never drawing closer but never falling behind. Their footsteps echoed loudly in the empty alley, the sound magnified by the oppressive silence. Amber felt a cold sweat break out on her brow as a sense of dread washed over her. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted, that whatever lurked in the shadows was toying with them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Suddenly, without warning, the figure lunged forward, its movements fluid and sinuous. Sarah screamed, and the friends broke into a panicked run, their hearts pounding in their chests. They turned corner after corner, hoping to lose their pursuer in the labyrinth of streets. But the figure was relentless, always just a few steps behind. As they reached a dead-end alley, their worst fears were realized. Trapped with nowhere to run, they turned to face their stalker, their breath coming in ragged gasps. In the dim light, they could see its eyes gleaming with malice, its form shifting and morphing like a shadow come to life. With a blood-curdling scream, the figure descended upon them, and darkness engulfed their senses. Hours later, the sun rose on an empty alley, the echoes of the previous night's events lingering in the air like a haunting melody. Amber, Sarah, and Jake were never seen again, their fate a mystery lost to the shadows of the night. And in the alley where they disappeared, whispers of their final moments echoed endlessly, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks just beyond the light. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, Emma and Alex arrived at the secluded beachside restaurant to celebrate their graduation. The air was heavy with anticipation as they stepped inside, the scent of salt and sea mingling with the murmur of conversation and the clinking of glasses. The restaurant, with its weathered wooden floors and panoramic views of the ocean, seemed like the perfect setting for a night of celebration. But as the evening wore on, Emma couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over her like a dark cloud. At first, it was just little things, a flicker of movement out of the corner of her eye, a chill breeze that seemed to come from nowhere. But as the night progressed, the strange occurrences became more frequent and more unsettling. The lights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows across the room. The air grew colder, and Emma felt a chill run down her spine as she noticed a figure lurking in the shadows, watching them with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. Alex, too, seemed on edge, his usually easygoing demeanor replaced by a tense and wary expression. He tried to reassure Emma that it was just her imagination playing tricks on her, but deep down, he knew that something wasn't right. As the night wore on, the atmosphere in the restaurant grew increasingly oppressive. Whispers echoed through the air, and Emma felt as though unseen eyes were following her every move. She tried to dismiss it as her imagination running wild, but deep down, she knew that something was terribly wrong. Just as dessert was served, The lights went out completely, plunging the restaurant into darkness. Panic swept through the room as diners cried out in fear, their voices drowned out by the sound of crashing waves outside. In the chaos that followed, Emma and Alex found themselves separated from the rest of the group, stumbling blindly through the darkness as they searched for an exit. But no matter which way they turned, they found themselves only deeper and deeper into the heart of the restaurant's labyrinthine interior. As they reached the end of a long corridor, they stumbled upon a door that seemed to lead outside. With a sense of relief, they pushed it open and stepped out into the cool night air, only to find themselves standing on the deserted beach, with nothing but the sound of the waves crashing against the shore to keep them company. But their relief was short-lived, for as they turned to leave, they saw something moving in the shadows ahead. A figure emerged from the darkness, its features obscured by the night, and Emma felt a surge of terror grip her heart. With nowhere to run and nowhere to hide, Emma and Alex stood frozen in fear as the figure drew closer, its presence filling them with a sense of dread, unlike anything they had ever known. And as it reached out to them with skeletal hands, they realized with horror that they were face to face with something not of this world. With a scream of terror, they turned and fled into the night, their footsteps echoing across the empty beach as they ran for their lives. But no matter how fast they ran, they could not escape the darkness that pursued them. And as they disappeared into the night, the sound of their screams mingled with the howling of the wind, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked just beyond the edge of the sea. And as dawn broke over the horizon, casting long shadows across the deserted beach, the figure emerged from the darkness once more, its eyes burning with malevolent intent as it watched the retreating figures of Emma and Alex, knowing that they would never truly escape its grasp.